and welcome to the African Diaspora News channel. Tonight we delve into a growing controversy that has sparked intense debate across the African continent. It concerns the long-standing financial agreements between several African countries and the Central Bank of France. Critics are calling it a system that perpetuates economic dependence and inequality. Here's the story.
Pact for the Continuation of Colonization said those countries were expected to deposit 85% of their bank reserves back then with the French Central Bank under the control of the French Minister of Finance. And should those countries wish to request some of those monies, because remember they were only left with 15% of their reserves, then they would have to submit a financial statement for the country. And if approved, they could only access up to 20% of whatever they had deposited the year before as a loan at commercial interest rates. The only difference now is the 85% deposits have now been lowered down to maybe between 50 and 60%. But the countries are still forced and required to deposit their bank reserves with the French Central Bank. So picture this situation. You are depositing all your monies with France. Should you need some of your money, you get it as a loan at commercial interest rates. So immediately, you have a credit with France, but you begin to owe France. This has been going on and continues to this day. So combined, the 14 countries are giving to France cash, cold hard cash, over $500 billion every year. And France takes that money and invests it in its own stock market under the French name, and the countries may or may not know the returns. Currently, for every 14 billion that France takes out of Africa, by the time they finish investing it in the French stock market, they are realizing upwards of 300 billion. So you do the math to see how much money France is taking out of Africa every year. And yet France has the audacity to then look at African countries and call them poor countries. Why would poor African countries give $500 billion to France year in and year out? What really gets me the most is, how does the world sit back and watch this carnage take place in Africa? Where is the United Nations? This is the body that's supposed to be looking out for any violations of human rights. It is my humble opinion that singularly, what France is doing to Africa is the biggest violation of human rights.
Now, for decades, 14 African countries, including Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and Cameroon, have been required to deposit up to 50% of their foreign currency reserves into the French Central Bank. This arrangement, stemming from the colonial era, was intended to stabilize their economies by pegging their currencies to the euro. But critics argue the system is far from fair. Okay, here's why. When these African countries need access to their own money, they can only withdraw it in the form of a loan, and not just any loan, but one with high interest rates. This means African nations are essentially paying to borrow their own money. Meanwhile, France uses these funds to invest in its own economy, driving growth and development on its soil. The outcome? African countries rich in natural resources and human capital find themselves in a vicious cycle of debt, poverty, and underdevelopment. So you know what? This economic exploitation in plain sight is not fair. It's really not fair. I mean, the African nations are financing France's growth at the expense of their own development. It's a modern day form of colonialism that needs to come to an end. I mean, the effects are stark. Many of these countries struggle to fund critical sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure, while unemployment and poverty remain widespread. Calls for reform are growing louder. Pan-African movements, economists, and even some African leaders are urging the abolition of this system. They argue of the establishment of independent monetary policies and financial institutions that prioritizes African development is calling for the downfall of this. For now, the system remains in place, But the growing awareness and resistance suggest that change could be on the horizon. Whether France and the affected African countries can come to a fairer agreement remains to be seen. I mean, when I saw this video on X, I just thought to myself, this is a story of power, money, and the struggle for true economic independence. I mean, I am glad that we have leaders like Ibrahim Traore, who is educating his citizens about this modern day slavery that is still happening. And I'm glad that, France is being exposed for the fraud that it is. I mean, where is the United Nations in this when this carnage, this evil deeds are still happening in modern day society? Where is the United Nations that pledged to fight for the people of this world? Where are they when they see France doing this to these African nations? So big ups to people like Ibrahim Traore that is making people wake up. That is making the entire African nation to wake up and see what these European countries have been doing and are still doing in Africa for a long time. And that is, after these stories, I see the importance for Africans to unite, to wake up and unite, because a united Africa is so detrimental to the European economies. But don't take my word for it. Let's just do it and see how it goes. What do you think about this segment? Comment to us in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and share the broadcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss these groundbreaking conversations right here on the African Diaspora News channel.
Unleash the power of knowledge and connect with the heartbeat of the African Diaspora. Download our African Diaspora News Channel app now on Google Play and Apple App Store. Stay informed with authentic and diverse perspectives, breaking news, and cultural insights. Immerse yourself in a community that celebrates unity, resilience, and progress. Experience the vibrancy of the diaspora at your fingertips. Don't miss out. Empower your perspective today. Search African Diaspora News Channel and join the conversation.